right, so we have done the NFC regular season standings. Now it's time for the AFC predictions. So let's go to the AFC East. It's at least at the top. I don't think things are really changing as long as Josh Allen is healthy. Buffalo can build a pretty good lead division wise, and honestly, I think they can probably end up being the top seed in all of the AFC actually. So I have them. Everyone else, they kind of there's a lot of room for doubt basically. With New England, you got the new coach, and you just want to make sure all the skill position guys are taken care of. You want to make sure May is up to snuff. The effort's not going to be lacking though with the Patriots. I think they're going to be a very tough team. Those Mike Vrabel teams, they it doesn't take long for them to kind of take on his personality. Just Vrabel, he will throw everything at the wall. He will try everything. He will throw everything in the kitchen sink. Those guys really will play for him. They'll run through a wall for him, and they're going to be tough. I just think talent wise, when they face teams that can kind of move the ball better and can kind of go back and forth, they may not be there yet offensively. But I do think they finished second behind Buffalo. Third, I think, is Miami. They're just such a weird team. I think they're kind of. I think coaching. I think this era, this McDaniel's to Tyreek era, is kind of coming to a close as it should, and it sucks to say rebuild, but you got to rebuild. I think you got to rebuild. I think it was nice for what it was. You got a playoff appearance out of it, but they just shrink against better teams every time they face a better team, and every time it gets a little tough and kind of close and tense, they always fade. They can beat the bad teams. They can beat teams that are maybe in their tier, that kind of second, that low second, high third tier, but ultimately, I just think they kind of fade as always, and I don't see them really making a lot of noise, when it matters most. And the Jets, you could swap Miami and the Jets, honestly, but you're starting Justin Fields at QB. And I mean, unless you can really put together a plan where he can kind of do his best Lamar Jackson impression, I think it'll be a long season. I think defensively they'll still be solid, they'll still be good, but you're asking a lot out of the defense with the Jets to really kind of hold things up while the Jets figure things out. I think in the vein of New England with the new coach with Aaron Glenn, they'll run through a wall for him. They'll play hard for him, but ultimately you got to have an offense that some aspect of the offense that you can trust. You can trust Fields' legs, but teams can kind of scheme for that, and I think that's what'll kind of make it a long season because eventually teams, they having a guy like Fields who has his moments, he just doesn't make them sweat. And I think you have a quarterback that'll kind of make you nervous, or at least an offense that'll make teams nervous when it's a close game, and when they have a third or fourth down, do they think twice and say, "Hey, let's go for fourth because we don't want to give them the ball back." And the Jets really just aren't that type of team right now. Not with Fields under center. Let's go to the North. I think Baltimore again. Baltimore at worst to get into the playoffs. Outside of that one season where Jackson, Lamar was injured, you're at least getting to the playoffs, and you're at least getting one home game. The question is, can you get over the hump? Can you stop the unforced errors? That's ultimately that's the real question. There's as long as Lamar Jackson stays healthy, they're fine. They draft well. They always put a strong product on the field, but ultimately, the questions need to be answered in the postseason. Third, you have the well, not third. Oh, goodness, I'm just skipping over them. I would say Cincinnati. I think offensively they're going to be great. They're going to be in the top probably three, at least passing wise. If they can get a solid running game to keep defenses honest, that'd be great. But even when you don't keep the defenses honest, you have Burrow to Chase, you have Burrow to Higgins. It's crazy. Gesicki is a super reliable tight end as well. I think they'll be fine. I think just a big question with them would be, can you trust that defense to hold up long enough? All right, let's continue. We had just finished talking about Cincinnati. Just I trust the offense. but defensively, that's what the big question is. You know, they can drop 30, but unfortunately, defensively, they give up 35 a game. So next up, I think third will be Pittsburgh. I think it'll be another season where they approach 8 or 9 wins. I think ultimately, now what really interests me with them, really defensively, is they have Jack Sawyer. Jack Sawyer made some big defensive plays, for the Buckeyes last year, pairing him with a guy like, TJ Watt. And then they have guys on defense that are just going to make plays. Their defense keeps finding ways to make plays. So ultimately, I think that's what will help. Having a guy like Aaron Rodgers, I think if the defense can keep it close, and in these games, um, and you put the ball in Aaron Rodgers' hands, you have Kirk at receiver, and you also now have DK Metcalf as well, who basically replaced Pickens. They can keep things interesting, but I think relying on a 42-year-old Rodgers, who in these situations he's got to be mobile. And Baltimore, Cincy, and Cleveland, they all have guys that can get after it. And this isn't the younger Aaron Rodgers that could kind of get in the pocket, get out, kind of play playground football, and find the guys that he needed to. So I think that may be the issue. I think that in my opinion is what will put him behind Cincinnati. Can you trust him to hold up first of all, and can you trust him to be mobile enough when things get tight. Last is Cleveland. They have a lot of stuff. Like teams at the bottom, they have stuff to figure out. You got to figure out your quarterback situation. I think defensively they'll still be pretty strong, but again, like Flacco isn't going to play all 17 games, and at some point, you're probably looking at Pickett, or you're looking. Well, no, not Pickett. I think Pickett got moved. We're looking at Gabriel Sanders. I believe Pickett is still there as well, but you got to look at someone, and until they're solid in that, I think that's what'll put them at the bottom, and that's what'll put them, behind the eight ball, so to speak, in a lot of games. You know, if the other team can start, scoring, or at the very least moving the ball. If they can move the ball and kind of play field position battle, ultimately I think that's where Cleveland may falter and everything. Flacco can still sling it, but you need in this league, and especially in their division, you need consistency. And I don't think the defense is, again, when you're putting all that pressure on the defense to kind of hold up, eventually they break. And I just think firepower wise, they're behind Baltimore, Cincinnati, and Pittsburgh. Um, Now let's go to the AFC South. I think the AFC South is interesting. I think with Indianapolis, not having a solid QB situation. Richardson is all over the place. He may be headed out sometime soon. Maybe not this season, but maybe sometime in the offseason, depending on what Daniel Jones does. Shane Steichen kind of has his work cut out for him. But let's go to the top. I think Jacksonville finishes ahead of Houston. I think this will be a fun team. I think defensively, if their D line can hold up, if they can be solid enough, I think they can. I think Jacksonville can make some noise. I'm looking at 9 or 10 wins with them. I think Houston. You got to answer the line. I think ultimately what'll put Jacksonville through is that the fact that they don't have the first place schedule, and I think with Houston, with the teams you're playing, that line's got to hold up. I think their defense is fine, though. I think their defense is fine. Houston's going to keep things interesting. I think Stroud is fine, but you got to do something with that line, because ultimately, I think that's when they lose games. I think that's ultimately where it is. I think Jacksonville, I think they can hold up. I think Cohen is going to be a shot in the arm for those guys on offense. Hunter as well. I think that Jacksonville has kind of found their identity, and it started with their GM, the new GM Gladstone, who looks like he's like 25 years old. But when he said, "Hey, we're moving some people out the way. We'll give up a lot, but we're getting Hunter." And I believe that mindset is kind of going with the team. Jacksonville, they do have solid. They have some great defensive pieces out there, and I think they can put it together. I think they'll be one of the more entertaining teams to watch this season. Third will be Indianapolis. I think Shane Steichen can call plays, but like I said, when you have Jones, historically, you're just kind of limited in what you can do. But they've always managed to put out a solid team on both sides of the ball, and they can probably play spoiler at the end of the season. Tennessee, there's potential with Tennessee to kind of be a surprise team. I think Cam Ward has a lot to the table, just physically, physically one of the better quarterbacks. He's got physical gifts, and just watching him play when he was at Miami, creating plays, keeping plays alive. I think he, depending on what Tennessee can do, they might be a bit of a surprise season. I don't see him getting anywhere near the playoffs, but I think if you're a Titans fan, there is reason, for optimism with Ward. I think Ward has a really really nice season. Finally, we have probably what is the craziest division, especially with all the moves that have been made in the past few seasons. The AFC West. At the top, I'm still going Kansas City. I just think in terms of continuity, um, their core has been together for at this point what 6 or 7 years now, and at worst, you're getting to the AFC title game, which is insane. But they make it look easy. It's not. But Mahomes is still reliable. I think defensively they're still great, and you have just in terms of coordinators that one of the best combinations, and they've been there together for what 8 or 9 years, really, I believe. So um, they know how to win close games. They don't really. It's rare they get in shootouts, and it's rare that they blow teams out anymore. But they have a formula, and they're really good at controlling the pace of the game. Um, Denver defensively is incredible, and Bo Nix showed last season that the Broncos did exactly what they needed to do. You pair a capable rookie up with a great play caller in Sean Payton, and you saw what happened as the season went on. You saw the confidence grow. You saw Denver perform better on offense. You got Sutton, you got Moore out there. I think this is going to be a great team. It'll be a great season. I think those games between really everyone in the AFC West, but especially Denver. Really, now I'm not going to say Kansas City, but Denver and the Chargers. Those will be interesting because that'll determine the second place team. Um, but I'll give it to Denver just because I just believe defensively they're a lot more consistent across the board, and I think they can build on what they did last year. The Chargers, first of all, the Chargers are kind of like the Falcons of the AFC. They just managed to have like the worst luck, whether it's injuries, whether it's decision making, I don't know, but they just seem to have the worst luck. And it doesn't matter who the coach is. They've always managed to compile a lot of talent. Like really, probably one of the most talented teams in the league. But it's just, can Herbert hold up, not just physically, but mentally? Can he step up in those big games? Because he's going to look at every game in this division is going to be big. Because Vegas, they're not going to be sleepers either. They're not going to be slouches. They're not going to be pushovers. Not with Pete Carroll. Not with the way he coaches. He's going to have those guys ready to fight. So that'll be it. But I do have them. I think running wise, I just think you have a great coach and Harbaugh, and he's similar to Schottenheimer. Like they know how to get their guys ready. They know how to instill confidence. And there's enough talent with the Chargers to give Denver and KC a run for their money. They're not. No one in this division is going to sleepwalk to the top spot. But I just trust Kansas City more. The final is Las Vegas, and I just mean last. I just think putting everything together, making sure you have a QB that you can trust, and Geno Smith is really really good. I think that's a great one, but just making sure those skill position guys are consistent enough. And again, just like kind of the bottom teams in these divisions, there's just a lot of change that you kind of have to manage. I honestly think Genty may end up, the offensive rookie of the year just because I think he'll get a lot of touches. I think he's going to be a very special player, and the Raiders are going to be a tough, tough out and a tough game every season with a new coach and a new QB. The AFC West is going to be crazy. It is going to be crazy. So those are my predictions. I'll come back later with the playoffs for both divisions. Thank you.